I was walking on the beach one summer evening with my family after dinner, and it was a quiet, warm sunset in southern Maine, and I see Father Ron, the local priest, walking towards us. So I approach him, and I shake his hand, and I say, "Hey, Father Ron, how you doing?" And so we're chatting, and we see this other family coming towards us. It's this young couple with a little kid, and I recognize them from Sunday Mass. So the little kid sees the priest, and he gets all excited, so he runs up to Father Ron and says, "Hey, Father Ron, how you doing?" So Father Ron gives him a high five and rustles his hair, like people do with kids. And so the kid looks a little anxious, like wants to say something. So he says, "Father Ron, I have something to tell you. I want to be a priest when I get older." So Father Ron lights up. "Really? Why is that?" "Well, I was thinking, I'm going to have to go to church for the rest of my life, right? And if I'm going to have to go to church that much, I may as well do all the talking." C.S. Lewis once said, "I believe in Christianity as I believe the sun has risen. Not only because I see it, but because through it, I see everything else." What is it that you hold dearest to your heart? What is it that no matter what you know, or what you see, or what you don't know, you will always believe in? That's faith. The book of Proverbs tells us faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we cannot see. That's it. It doesn't mention God or the divine or religion, just faith. In the summer, my family and I are blessed enough to be in beautiful southern Maine. Biddeford, the town we stay in, has this little chapel overlooking the public beach. When I was younger, I never really looked forward to going to Mass every week, except in the summer, because in that old pine chapel works a retired priest, Father Ron, an enthusiastic, friendly French-Canadian retired priest. It was Father Ron's homilies that first got me hooked on going to Mass every week. I would do anything to get away from your stereotypical preacher homily that I was forced to sit through in the cold brick church in the winter. Ron and his engaging, funny, yet somehow meaningful sermons kept me waiting for next Sunday, to go back, to hear more. When you walk up to St. Brendan's Chapel on a bright Sunday morning, churchgoers and passerbys alike are mingling. Father Ron, standing at the threshold, hugs anyone who enters the chapel and asks how your week is going. The inside's pretty ordinary. It's not your classic, ornate Roman Catholic cathedral. It's plain. It's drafty. The windows are discolored, not stained glass, discolored. Yet, somehow, in a family-esque kind of way, it's all very welcoming. The congregation is alive and ready to sing hymns, and more likely than not, ready to go to the beach right after Mass. I wouldn't be surprised if Father Ron had his bathing suit on underneath his vestment. There's a phenomenon that takes place in St. Brendan's Chapel. During the homily, Ron leaves the lectern after reading the gospel and walks about a quarter of the way into the center aisle. This is where he delivers his homily, among the congregation. The phenomenon is not so much his absence from the lectern as it is how he proceeds with the sermon. I like to call it the Ron range. It encompasses about the first 3 or 4 pews, and you can tell who's new to St. Brendan's by how close they sit to the front. Believe me, I've been caught in the Ron range before, and it's not pretty. Father Ron does this to engage the audience. He'll walk up to some poor kid in the front pew and ask, "What do you think today's gospel was about?" And immediately, the kid turns bright red and realizes what terrible mistakes he's made. The kid will say something cute or vaguely related to the scripture, the congregation gets a good laugh out of it, and Father Ron proceeds with the homily. The 10 o'clock Mass is always packed. Father Ron always draws a crowd into that beautifully rustic log cabin of a church. He engages the congregation. He doesn't preach at them. He preaches amongst them. And that is faith. A few minutes ago, I asked you to think of something that you hold dearest to your heart. Something that you will always believe in. At first, I was just being rhetorical, but now, I actually want you to think. We all have faith. It's a necessity. I think a lot of people confuse faith with false hope or ignorance. That doesn't have to be the case. People in general also associate faith with religion or a god or gods. Again, that isn't necessarily true. That thing that you thought of, that is your truth. That is faith. Faith can be applied to a variety, almost an infinite amount of situations. And I think the most important and intuitive type of faith is faith in yourself. A little optimism goes a long way, and what good is your commitment to something external if you have no self-commitment to begin with? Self-respect and personal faith are the foundations upon which all life decisions are based. Only you know your own capabilities, and that, from there, influences what choices you make. It is expressing our own faith to others and building relationships that I believe we can begin to understand faith between people. Loving and trusting another is the simplest form of faith we can have in someone else. That's the golden rule. That's when, for maybe even an instant, you care about someone else more than you care about yourself. Developing faith in others leads to empathy, compassion, love, and confidence. That's the second most important kind of faith. 4 years ago, when my brother was a senior at Andover, we hosted a PG from Italy. He arrived a couple weeks before school started, so we were still in Maine. It was nice having him up there, getting to see him relax and enjoy the beach with us. Pietro liked it too. He was a pretty laid-back guy, and he said he would do pretty much whatever we did. And my mom said, well, we go to Mass on Sundays, and he said, fine, I'll go, it's fine. And it wasn't until later that we learned that my mom had jumped the gun a little in assuming Pietro was Catholic just because he was Italian. Pietro was pretty slow-moving, especially in the morning, so we were late to Mass, which, yes, means we had to sit in the round range. We get there, of course, embarrassed as we make the walk of shame all the way up to the front aisle and sit in the very first pew. Mass goes on. Ron finishes the gospel, comes down from the lectern as usual, and spots this new face in the front pew. So he comes down, he picks on Pietro for a little bit, making fun of him before he starts the homily. Poor Pietro. He just gotten here. He's not even Catholic. It's his first week in America, and he's probably thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into? A few minutes later, I look over at Pietro, and I thought he'd be out of it, asleep, gone, maybe, but he's loving it. He's really into it. The sermon was about love, friendship, being a good neighbor, and Ron says something along the lines of, everyone should learn how to love someone new each day. Pietro chuckles, leans over to my mom and says, you don't have to tell an Italian that. With self-respect, love, and faith in others down, how does faith affect our perception, our worldview? Like the sun for C.S. Lewis, it's a lens to view the world. What is faith, if not awareness? I'm not here to tell you how to think or what to think or how to view the world. I'm here to urge you to recognize the faith that surrounds us every day. What good is our faith if there's no room for others? David Foster Wallace, the late author and professor, said, blind certainty, a closed-mindedness that amounts to an imprisonment so total the prisoner doesn't even know he's locked up. Faith is not just about what you believe in, but it's about believing in something. We all believe in something. That was that truth that I asked you to find earlier, because there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. To me, faith is liberating. Isn't it frustrating when you're asked a question that you don't know the answer to? Or that one person who seems to never have an opinion on anything? Knowing what you know and being confident in what you believe in are powerful stepping stones to achieving a balanced life. So what does this all mean? I could stand up here and lecture you for hours about what faith should mean to you and how it should affect your lives and what your truths should be. That's pretty lofty stuff, and even I would get bored doing that. And that doesn't mean anything coming from me. I can't tell you how to think or how to live your lives, but I can share with you my faith and how I've grown in my thought process of viewing the world. And hopefully something can be taken away from that. There's a banner that hangs in my church every year to recognize Vocations Week. There's a picture of a dove with text across reading, God has blessed me in unique ways. How should I use my gifts to serve him? Vocations, when put simply, are how you choose to live life. Whether it's an officially ordained vocation and you're a priest, or you're a stay-at-home parent, you're still contributing to society. Our faith plays a big part in our vocation. How we live our lives, how we express our faith to others and ourselves, our vocation, our calling, is just as much of a lens as our faith is. Again, this can come across as some pretty intimidating stuff, and I urge you not to get discouraged. Take life one step at a time, because each day has enough troubles of its own. So, as you're going through life and you're wondering exactly what it is you see every day, remind yourself, it's just the sun. Thank you.